Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome in across the continent. My name is Jesse, and I'm here with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And if you're joining us for the first time today, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Now, you are in for such a treat today. Now, I know I'm a very enthusiastic guy, and I say you're in for a treat all the time, but even by my typical over-the-top standards, you're in for a treat because we are continuing our epic peak discovery series in conjunction with the amazing folks at Parks Canada's Mountain Parks. If you've joined us for the rest of these, and I think half of our audience has today, we always end up with like most of Alberta in these broadcasts, which is wicked. You will know that we get to feature some of the coolest places, not just in Canada, but on planet Earth. We have done a wide array of incredible programs with them, most recently Park Patrol 2.0 and the K9 Unit live in Banff, one of the most epic things we've ever done. And today, we're going to keep on the animal theme. We are going to learn about sharks in the park in Jasper National Park. Well, that's kind of curious because I've been to Jasper National Park and I did not see a single shark when I was there. In fact, I didn't even know to look for a shark. So I'm really excited to turn you over to Sabrina to explain a little bit about what they're talking about, go on a little bit of a journey together, and maybe play a really fun clip as well. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining us today, Sabrina, and welcome back. It's like the 39th time you've been on with us. This is very exciting to have you here again.
Much. Hi, Jesse. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. Welcome to Jasper National Park. It's one of 47 national parks in all of Canada, and I am so happy to be here with you this morning. My name, as Jesse mentioned, is Sabrina Kelly. I'm lucky enough to work in Parks Canada in Jasper National Park as an educator at the Palisades Stewardship Education Centre. For those of you that don't know where Jasper, we're located in the western edge of Alberta in the Canadian Rockies, and we're both a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a dark sky preserve. This place has also been home to other people for thousands of years. We respectfully acknowledge that Jasper National Park is located in both Treaty 6 and 8, as well as the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Assiniwich, Deniza, Nahiawak, Secwepemc, Stoney Nakoda, Mountain Métis, and Métis. I mention this to honor and be thankful for where I live and encourage you to find out whose traditional territory that you call home. Today, you're going to join me on an adventure to learn as much as we can about an invasion of aquatic invasive species. It all started last summer. After a long, hard week at the office, I was finally on my days off. It was a beautiful day for the beach, and I was ready to relax and forget about my worries for a few hours. I was trying to find all of my beach things, but had to dig for the last few pieces. Oops, almost forgot my phone. Now I'm ready to go. I just love beach days. There's something so safe and special about grabbing your towel, swimsuit, and kayak and spending the entire day lounging next to one of the many gorgeous lakes around Jasper. Look how clean and clear they all are. This looks like the perfect day to sit back and enjoy the sun. I can't believe how gorgeous it is out today. Time for a little TLC time. No worries, just a relaxing, easy day at the beach. I'm no expert, but I don't think there are supposed to be sharks in this lake. In fact, sharks definitely aren't normally found anywhere in Alberta. This must be one of those aquatic invasive species that I've heard of. I need to do a bit more research into this subject as I don't feel like sharing my lakes with sharks of any kind. I know I've got a book in here somewhere about sharks. Nope. Nope. Definitely nope. Why did I bring a rubber boot to the beach? Here we go. This book should help me figure out how a shark made it into this lake. Maybe this one. Darn, there's nothing in these that can tell me how and why this shark is here. Maybe I need to check the Parks Canada website. So, okay, this shark would be considered an aquatic invasive species, or AIS for short. It says here that aquatic invasive species are actually any species introduced to an aquatic environment that is not originally from there. These include things like fish, mussels, different types of weeds, or even things that can only be seen under a microscope. Wait. Don't we want more species in places? I remember something about biodiversity being a good thing. They mention here that some species which are introduced are okay since they don't change ecosystems very much. These are called low impact species. They become a food source to help out some other species somehow. But other things that get introduced can have a large effect on ecosystems and either take over or cause damage to the species that normally live in these areas. These ones are referred to as high-impact species. Jasper is currently worried about 3 main high-impact species, and here's why. First up are zebra mussels. No, not those kind of zebra mussels. These ones. This species is one of special concern because of how quickly it can spread. They came to Canada in the mid-1980s on board European ships who would dump out their ballast water, or water to weigh them down, and make them more stable, not knowing that these mussels had caught a ride. The females can release up to 1 million eggs per year. Males can release more than 2 million sperm to cause fertilization in the water. Their eggs are microscopic and can easily travel in any trapped water on boats or even in gear. The adult zebra mussels can survive out of water for 18 to 30 days, so catching a ride from one water source to another is pretty easy. When they arrived in Canada, they found a home in the Great Lakes. Zebra mussels are believed to have arrived in North America's Great Lakes in about 1986, but mussels were first discovered in Lake St. Clair in June of 1988. Lake St. Clair connects to Lake Huron in its north and Lake Erie is south. By 1989, zebra mussels had quickly spread to all of the Great Lakes. They were able to repopulate quickly because they had no predators here to cut down their numbers. Since zebra mussels only take 2 to 3 years to mature versus the local mussel populations in the Great Lakes, which takes about 4 to 5, they were easily able to outcompete the native species and take over. Their introduction into the Great Lakes has caused a lot of damage to the local populations of many species, the amount of nutrients in the water, as well as to humans. They attach themselves to hard surfaces such as boats, propellers, rocks, and make it difficult for fisher people to do their jobs. Their shells are very sharp when broken, and it hurts to step on them. Ouch! If you're playing in the sand and walking with bare feet, and there are zebra mussels on the shore, your feet may get cut. When playing in these areas, the public are urged to wear water shoes or any closed-toed footwear while near the water. Yikes! I guess I'd have to go searching for my other rubber boot if zebra mussels find their way to Jasper Lakes. But why does this matter? It matters because of how quickly this species can take over a water source. In 2013, zebra mussels found their way into Lake Winnipeg, and within a few years, they'd overtaken the lake. Since their introduction around 40 years ago, zebra mussels have spread to more than 750 lakes across Canada and the United States. These don't sound like a very positive species to add to Jasper, but so far, there's only one shark here. No big deal. What other aquatic invasive species has Jasper National Park worried? The next thing AIS experts are concerned about coming to Jasper National Park is Myxobolus cerebralis, otherwise known as whirling disease. This disease is so difficult to detect and stop because the spores that spread are microscopic. It survives in fresh water and is grown in and distributed through a worm which, when released, attaches to the skin of fish and enters their bodies. The spores burrow into the sides of the fish, affecting the nervous system and the overall development of the fish. You'd only know that a water source has been affected when people begin seeing the symptoms come out in salmonid fish such as salmon or trout. It causes bulging eyes, a twisted spine, and a smaller blackened tail to form. Often, it causes the fish to swim in a circle, hence the name whirling disease. Why does this matter? This is bad because it dramatically shortens the lifespan of fish that have it, decreasing the population of fish in our lakes and rivers. It also has no known cure. The spores are very hardy and can live in sediment for more than 20 years. Whirling disease is relatively new to Canada. The first case was discovered in August 2016 in Banff National Park, Johnson Lake. In September 2016, whirling disease had spread to the Bow River in Calgary. This is a concern since in juvenile fish, if they become infected, it can have a fatality rate of up to 90%. They are moved from one water source to another by the movement of fish, mud, or sediment and water. By May 1st, 2017, it was confirmed that whirling disease had spread to the Bow and Old Man River watersheds in Alberta. Experts continue to monitor the spread and search for ways to stop it from infecting other waterways. I'm starting to see where this is going. Anytime an aquatic invasive species enters an ecosystem, they change the balance of things. Zebra mussels. No, again, not those ones. These ones. Zebra mussels and Myxobolus cerebralis, or whirling disease, are things that moved into different water sources and have changed things for the species living there, and not for the better. Another species that is of concern for Jasper National Park is Eurasian water milfoil. This plant has an amazing ability to form new colonies from a single stem, seed, or leaf. It is native to Europe, Asia, and North Africa, where it forms a thick shade layer, reducing the sunlight that native plants can receive. Introduced in the 1940s, the belief is that this plant got here through the aquarium trade or ballast water from ships. In 1970, it made its way to Okanagan Lake, the first reported case in British Columbia. The plant fragments, seeds, or buds are moved from one water source to another by water currents, animals, boaters, or fishing gear. 4 years after its introduction in BC, it is spread into areas such as the Thompson, Central Kootenay, East Kootenay, the Lower Mainland, and many coastal areas. Why is this bad for Jasper? As it gets to the end of its life cycle and begins to decay and break down, it reduces the amount of oxygen in its water source, affecting the native fish and wildlife. This plant can easily outcompete native plants, and once it becomes dense enough, forms an ideal breeding ground for the most pesky summertime insects, the mosquitoes. These tangled plants make it hard for people to fish, boat, and swim, as well as decrease the biological diversity and water quality. Plants can be reduced by hand pulling or raking, but only if the entire plant is removed. Any parts that are left can form an entire new colony. Fortunately, Alberta is currently free from Eurasian water milfoil, and with everyone's help, we can keep it this way. Oh dear, this is bad. But so far, it only looks like there's one nasty shark in this lake. If I can catch it, maybe we can make this lake safe again. Well, here I go. Well, I guess that one didn't work. How did so many of them appear so quickly? I wonder how we can help stop the spread of the invasive species. There must be a better way. The threat of AIS isn't a new idea. Across Canada and the world, scientists have been concerned for this growing problem as it finds its way into lakes, streams, and rivers. I'm just not sure how they move so quickly from place to place. Oh no! It must be transferred from the mud, water, or organisms that catch a ride on things like our floaties, boats, and shoes. Once these aquatic invasive species enter our water sources and start reproducing, they're virtually impossible to get rid of. I wonder what Jasper National Park is doing to make sure that our lakes and rivers stay unaffected by unwanted aquatic invasive species. I think it's time I phoned up an expert on aquatic invasive species to answer a few of my questions. Hello? Is this Erica, the aquatic invasive species expert in Jasper National Park?
Hi, yes, I am.
Perfect. You won't believe the day I've had so far. Let's just say it involved sharks.
Sharks here in Jasper?
Yes, I've been trying to catch them, but haven't had the most luck so far. Enough about sharks, though. I've spent some time today learning all about aquatic invasive species, but still have a few questions that I need an expert to answer. My first question is, why are these three specific species, the zebra mussels, the Myxobolus cerebralis, and Eurasian water milfoil, of special concern in Jasper?
Aquatic invasive species are the second most significant threat to biodiversity after habitat loss. Jasper is the largest national park in the Canadian Rockies and is home to an astounding 1,762 lakes. Prevention is key when speaking about aquatic invasive species and zebra mussels, whirling disease, and milfoil. All would have the most devastating impacts on the ecological integrity of the park, as well as damaging effects on the economy and tourism. Once these three aquatic invaders are established, they are nearly impossible to eradicate. In addition to that, zebra mussels are one of the most catastrophic aquatic invasive species in North America.
1,762? Wow, that's a lot of lakes. So, aquatic invasive species are moved around in water and sediment. Does this mean that they would naturally make their way into lakes being carried by other animals?
Yes, but humans accelerate this process. There are various pathways to invasion. Sometimes invasive species are deliberately introduced, but more often they are unintentionally introduced. With zebra mussels, they have been known to become inadvertent hitchhikers on or in boats, water toys, or fishing gear. The overland movement of watercraft and water-related equipment has been identified as the primary way zebra mussels and AIS spreads from one body of water to another.
What are the options available to combat aquatic invasive species? What is Jasper National Park doing and why? Ouch! Darn sign! Why would they put this in such a high trafficked area?
Are you okay?
Yes, I got a little distracted and I walked into a sign. Oops. I wonder what this is. Clean, drain, dry? Sounds like something that might help us with our shark problem.
Well, that's a perfect way to lead into me answering what Jasper National Park is doing to prevent aquatic invasive species from entering our water sources. This year, we've established a clean, drain, dry program here in Jasper National Park. Studies show that the best prevention of aquatic invasive species is to always clean, drain, dry all watercraft and water-related gear that touches water between every use when moving from water body to water body. That means inspect and clean your gear, remove all plant material, mud, and foreign objects, drain all water from the boat, including motor, bilge, live wells, and bait wells, dry all components, and allow boat, trailer, and gear at least a week or more before entering another body of water.
This sounds like a place I should visit after having my kayak in the water with the sharks. Who knows what's caught a ride?
Jasper has set up an area where people can come to clean, drain, dry anything that has been in different water sources and could transfer AIS into our waters.
Because I've been in a lake where I know an aquatic invasive species is, it's extra important for me to get my boat cleaned. Thank goodness I did. Otherwise, these little aquatic invasive species could have hitched a ride to a new water source and started creating havoc.
These free stations can be found in mountain national parks across Canada to help prevent the spread of those high impact invasive species. This is especially important for motorized watercraft since there are so many pieces and parts that are very hard to clean. Jasper National Park is currently focused on educating people about the dangers of aquatic invasive species, instead of penalizing people.
What could happen if these high-impact aquatic invasive species do get into Jasper's lakes and rivers?
Invasive species are one of the biggest threats to biodiversity in the world. This is especially true for aquatic environments. With no natural predators or control in their ecosystems, invasive species like zebra mussels outcompete native species, degrade habitat, significantly alter the food web, and threaten the diversity of native species. The impact of Jasper specifically would be irrevocable.
Thanks for all your help today, Erica, and answering our questions. That was so informative. Educating people seems to be the best option for Jasper. If everyone works together to prevent AIS from getting into our water sources in the first place, we won't have to worry about getting rid of them at all. And with the help of a few friends, thanks to Erica making a few phone calls, the sharks have all been captured and are being returned to their natural environment as we speak. Now that my floaty has been thoroughly cleaned, drained, and dried, I'm ready to try out some other lakes around Jasper. I've still got a few more questions about aquatic invasive species, but for the rest of today, I'm going to have a nice, relaxing day at the beach, hopefully this time without any sharks.
And the Oscar, I just want to note, Best Picture, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, we got everything. All the awards in the season go to you, Sabrina, and you, Erica. That was incredible. So thank you very much for that. Ending with Finn is also a nice touch. My professional attachment is entirely out the window. That was a masterpiece. I'm going to use that as the example for all future videos with anything that Parks does ever. Also, before we get into serious questions, and I want to note, YouTubers, please do share your questions. We'd love to hear from you. I really want to know what the purpose of the little shark floaties is to begin with. Because no one could actually float on one of those, but they're amazing. I don't know why they exist, but they're wonderful. So we'll have to ask the providers of those in the future as part of our Q&A. We'll start off with a great first question. So we talked about boats, obviously. It was a big part of our video together. Is there something that individual people can do? So one of the things I've heard in parks in the past is boots being something that's really important to clean when you're going places. It might not apply to aquatic invasive species. It might. I'm not sure. So I'm curious, is there something that sort of people can do walking around, or hikers, or people that might have dogs or pets of some kind?
Do you want to take that one, Erica?
Sure. So the important thing for a day-to-day visitor is to make sure that if you do get in contact with any kind of water, and that means even going from one lake to another, that you are visiting our wonderful hot wash stations. We've got a few new ones coming in this summer, that you are clean, drain, drying, and that you're washing your gear. And if you don't have access to a hot wash station, that anything that has come in contact with water, you let it completely dry out, and that means leaving it on its own for a couple of days. If you've got your animals, making sure that you wash them and don't really let them go from one lake to another, because as we saw with some of our wildlife in the video, they can absolutely transmit our wonderful little hitchhikers.
Fantastic. Thanks, Erica. What we'll do is we'll bring you in if we have any in-depth aquatic invasive species programs. You can hang out with us in the background for now. But thank you for that first query. Sabrina, we've got one about the stations in general. This idea of having a place that people can actually come and clean their things, drain, dry them, all these things is really fantastic. Are you the first park to do this? Has this been piloted elsewhere? Like, do we have any sort of test cases for this as an idea? Because it's very cool.
We're definitely not the first park to do this. It's been happening across Canada to try and prevent aquatic invasive species from being transferred and to get into specific water sources. A lot of parks, be they provincial or national, you actually need a permit to come into the park and say that you have gotten your boats and all of your gear clean, drained, and dried before you go into water source. As we mentioned in the video, Jasper's really focusing on education first. So you don't need a permit, you don't need a requirement of that. We're just hoping that people will take it upon themselves to not try and transfer different little species and microscopic pieces from one lake to the next.
so glad we talked about this, and especially when it comes to like microscopic things, little things, because I think a lot of us are like, oh, we've got a big snake or we've got a big spider or a big mammal that's introduced to an area. That's bad. We shouldn't have that. We don't want a shark in the park, literally. But it's the little things that often have a really big impact. Zebra mussels, we talked about a lot in that video. I've seen zebra mussels firsthand in Lake Erie, and I mean, it is astonishing how impactful they can be. And now we talked about in the video this idea that prevention, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I mean, like there's or as the expression is butchered by me. If we do get aquatic invasive species in one of these lakes, is there an example of a successful elimination? Like, how would we even go about that? Have we had to?
That's a really good question. That's actually one I'm going to pass off to Erica to see if she knows the answer, because I don't know the answer to that, if they've been successful.
It would help if I knew myself. So I apologize. I was looking up when our first hot wash station existed. Do you mind just quickly repeating the question?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So the question is basically, have we ever had a successful example of a removal? Like you said, that it's so important that we prevent them from getting there in the first place. But if they do, can we get rid of them? Like, what would the deal be?
Oh, definitely. So whenever we do get any kind of attractant coming in, we have like a decontamination map that we will put any of those things on. They will be backed up and they will be sent off to some scientists. So we, frequently with algae, we'll be removing all that mud and algae from boats. We do have plans in place if we do detect any kind of invasive algae, invasive mussels, or boiling disease. If we catch any of that, we have a whole action plan for what we would do. But right now, it's mostly just a lot of mud and dirt.
Well, so one of the questions that I had personally, thank you for that, is do we have, I mean, quarantine is something that we're all pretty used to at this point after COVID, but like, could we quarantine a lake? Like, if we found out that one of these invasive species was in one of the lakes, would we prevent people from boating on it, swimming in it, anything else to help sort of stop the spread?
So it's very, do you mind if I grab this one, Sabrina?
Go for it.
So we have a plan, and it very much is dependent on the lake. So depending, if it's a very high alpine lake where no one really goes, then we could maybe close that one off a little bit more easily. But if it's a lake like we have at Moline, we would have to assess and kind of see what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes we just have restrictions. Unfortunately, it's very, very, very expensive to treat a lake for eradication. So let's say we want to get rid of every single mussel. That is extremely expensive. So we would have to kind of assess with our scientists. So we have an aquatic scientist that would come in. We would have our visitor team come in and discuss it. So it is very lake dependent on what we would do. But the main ones are closing the lake completely, putting in restrictions, or just being very aware and trying to contain the thing. So like with Lake Winnipeg, they're just trying to contain it to Lake Winnipeg. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Again, this is fascinating to think about. We've never actually talked about invasive species in this way, where there's like a plan on a park level. This is one of the joys of the Peak series, is I learn something new every single time, and it keeps me on my toes. So thank you for that, Erica. We're going to take a quick one on monitoring. So we want to prevent these things from getting in the lakes to begin with. How are we assessing that? Is it every day? Is it once a week? Is it every second Tuesday, twice removed? Sabrina, do we know what that might be?
So a lot of the time with aquatic invasive species, it comes from people that have been at the lakes and are noticing different species that have been affected, specifically with whirling disease. If anyone in the public is fishing and you notice that there's a blackened tail, bulging eyes, and the fish seem to be swimming in circles, we really take into account those people that have been there and are getting it firsthand. For some other ones, it's a little bit harder. For Eurasian water milfoil, they look really similar to some native species that are supposed to be here and are natural here. So we do have scientists come, and I'm not sure exactly how often they go and check the lakes in Jasper and around. That might be a question for Erica to bring around.
You're back.
We have a very small team of scientists that go, and that is their full-time job, to kind of go around, and they're checking for all kinds of stuff. They're also looking at the health of fish and the populations of fish. They're not specifically looking only for AIS, but it is a big part of their job, and they're out as their full-time work.
Can I stress again how great the jobs are at Parks Canada? And I'm not just saying this because we're doing a series with you, but like, oh, we get to go to mountain lakes and look for amazing creatures, and hopefully there's nothing bad, and most of the time there isn't. But like, that is just the coolest. Yeah, fingers crossed for sure. But like, that is an amazing gig, and it's been so fun doing this series. I know we've done like 10 plus broadcasts this year alone, but there's such a wide array of really cool careers in some of the most special places in the world. So I'm glad we got that question. Is there a tally of invasive species all time? Like, have we had to deal with other things in the past that are different from now? Are we seeing more invasive species come in based on more travelers or climate change? Is there any sort of pivoting impacts of these on the ecosystems in Jasper or beyond?
So, as we kind of mentioned in the video, this is a natural process for invasive species and just species in general to be transferred from one lake to another, from one water source to another. But because of humans and our jumping in from one lake or a river to the next without washing our gear or getting the correct clean, drain, dry process in, it's happening at an advanced pace. So it would normally happen and take maybe hundreds of years. But with humans, we transfer from maybe Lake Winnipeg and we drive all the way across the border into Alberta. So it's really easy for us to transfer them quicker than it would come from a duck's feet or a walking mammal like a moose, things like that.
Yep. In the video, speaking of the video, we talked about that there's no penalties. Right now, we're just focused on education. It's important to just tell people about this as an issue, give them the opportunity to clean themselves. Is there a reason for that? I mean, other than not wanting to be vindictive against people that are just coming in, but I'm just curious what the motivation to not have penalties are. Has that been tried anywhere else? Anything you can share with us?
Yeah, so I can start with that one and then I'll pass it off to Erica to expand on it. So there is different places where you can be fined if you haven't gotten your boat or your gear properly cleaned and you come in and you transfer things. But in Jasper, as in all national parks, we're trying to instill education. We're trying not to penalize people for not knowing. And a lot of people aren't aware of this. And a lot of people don't know when they come with their water shoes or they come with their floaties, whether it be a shark floaty or a different animal floaty. They aren't aware. So putting our signs out and getting the word out in things like this in virtual programs and also just word of mouth around the park, people at lakes, making sure they're taking care of their gear and washing it properly and making sure we don't transfer things.
Anything to add, Erica?
Yeah, and I can kind of take the more compliance side things. So if you're visiting a park where you are required to have a permit, they have issued penalties before, but our wardens are also very education based, and that is even in those permit parks. They're very, very intentionally looking to educate folks. So if they happen to encounter somebody who, this is maybe their second, third, sometimes even fourth encounter, then they'll be a little bit more stern and go for those penalties. So they are out there. There is some compliance, but because in Jasper we are a voluntary program, we are very much education based, and we really just want folks to know about what these risks are and how to handle them. So that's our big focus.
Well, thank you both for that very, very much. And as you said, in a virtual program, we've got over 430 kids between our two English and French programs. So now all the kids, if you're in Jasper, if you're in Edmonton, if you're in all over Alberta and beyond, if you come to Jasper or any other park, you now know this. Consider yourself educated. That is the joy of these broadcasts. So thank you very much to both of you. We're going to wrap up with one final question. Time flies and you're having fun. And it's sort of an overview of something that we talked about in the video a little bit, but I'm just curious if there's any last message for our kids that we want to leave them to take home with about aquatic invasive species, the risk that they pose, things that they can do to help prevent their spread. I'm going to bring you both in for this one. So if you want to share with us mutually, go for it.
Sure. So all I would say is just make sure that anytime you're jumping from water source to water source, lake to lake, anywhere around Canada, anywhere around the world, because we do have international travelers, make sure you clean, drain, and dry your gear.
Erica, anything to
Yeah,
add?
and I would, yeah, I was gonna say that's almost exactly what I was gonna say. So second everything there, and I would maybe just add the maybe look into what your local ones are, just so you have a little bit more information on what's there, because they are, the more you find out about them, the more interesting they are. So it is really, really kind of neat. So check out what your local invasive species are, so you know what to look for.
I'm so glad you mentioned this too, and in a positive way, but they are kind of cool. Like, I mean, we don't want them to be taking over all our places, but they're fascinating organisms in their own right. And I think that's worth noting. We're not demonizing the creatures. We just don't necessarily want them taking over from all the other creatures and plants and everything else that we love so much. So good point. And yeah, for the both of you, thank you so much for such a fun program. We've never featured invasive species this way before with you. That was a magnificent time. And thank you for your time, your passion, everything else. And we can't wait for the next in our, let me bring it up, our Peak Discovery series. So check it out. All the remaining programs are there. They're all on our YouTube channel. Lots to explore, learn, and discover. And thank you to our audience from all over Alberta and around Canada and the US for joining today. Have a wonderful day, everyone.